Hi, welcome to Culture Shock. Now, I had a really illuminating conversation this week with a group of middle managers in a fairly large organization. And every time they referred to the organization, this was the illuminating part, they kept on referring to it as they. They'd say, at this company, what they do. And it was common language, and it happened again and again. So eventually I had to stop them and go, can I just clarify, when you say they, do you mean we? And of course they all went, no, of course we do. We're talking about us. But they weren't saying that. And I think their language betrayed them. I think their language was the most honest thing about that conversation. And it made me think, because I've long had a sense that one of the greatest barriers to engagement, to people feeling involved in an organization, to people making the connection that the organization isn't something, the job, the career, the thing they do every day and the place that they do it, isn't something that exists on the periphery of their existence, but is actually kind of in the middle. One of the barriers to that has long been the basic philosophical structure of companies. And you've probably heard me speak about this before, and you might be going, here goes Cole wafting off about philosophy again, but I think it's probably the most important thing, and I still don't think we're getting it. See, let me show you a really boring picture, and it's really boring because you've seen this kind of thing before, and it never switches anybody on, except for perhaps the people at the very top. But this is a fairly standard sort of org chart. This is what we've based organizations on forever. I mean, going back centuries. This is how we build them. There are people at the very top. Those are the senior leaders. Those are the ones who are most well paid and the most well pampered. They're the most important people in the organization. So we think one rises up to that level, and they operate in this kind of area where the way we've structured the organizations, they actually feel quite lonely. It's hard up there. It's hard being at the top where you've got to make all of the leadership decisions. It's not easy to do. And no matter how experienced and skilled and smart and clever and funny and that we might think those people are, and the reason that we've chosen them is because they have those inherent things, it's still, when the weight is on your shoulders, it's a hard place to be. And then at the bottom of the organization, and please listen to that language, at the bottom of the organization, we have the frontline people, the people who are responsible for sales, for customer service, for all of those sorts of things, the things that the customer immediately experiences. And by the way, the only way in which customers often have any sense of whether or not they like your organization is through the interaction they have with these people at, and let me say it again, the bottom of the organization, which is kind of crazy when you think of it. But then in the middle, and this is the group of people that I was speaking to, in the middle of this organization is this kind of grey area where everybody's a bit depressed and everybody's a bit sort of put upon, because this is an area where, if I could put it in a nutshell, those people in that area are responsible for pushing down the strategies that have been written by the people at the top, upon which they have not been consulted, by the way, and they are pushing those down to the people at the bottom who know that they won't work. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And that's how organizations are built, and that's how they feel to the people who are in them. So it's unsurprising in a way that people in the middle part of the organization tend to feel disengaged. And they're the ones who are at the greatest danger, by the way. They're the ones who, upon which the success of the whole organization ultimately hangs. There is a way around this, and companies that are very, very service-oriented tend to do this anyway. They tend to invert the org structure, whether they realize that they've overtly done that or not. They do that, and they get great service results. And here's why. Because if you take this standard org chart and turn it on its head, philosophically, even if nothing physically has changed, even if nothing structurally really has changed, even if it doesn't affect pay grades and it doesn't affect the amount of leave you get or any of the entitlements, it doesn't change any of those sorts of things. What it does is it changes the position of leadership. Now look at the bottom of this organization now. Right down there you've got the senior leaders of the organization. Now what does any building need if you're going to build things on top of it? What's underneath the building you're sitting in right now? Foundations, right? Foundations which are strong, they're interlinked pieces of enmeshed concrete and steel. I mean, they're incredibly strong. And the bigger the building you build, the stronger the foundations need to be. That's what's going on underneath your building right now. You have these incredibly strong foundations. And by the way, this by default means that silos don't take hold very well, because foundations can't be individual blocks. They've got to link together. You can't have a 3-year operational strategy unless you've also got an interlinked 3-year people strategy, because the one thing doesn't work without the other. I can't believe this is actually that complicated, but anyway, bear with me. These are the foundations. So now, the leadership team isn't there to make all of the decisions. They're there to support the decisions of the organization, to make sure that they've actually got the finance and the backing and the structure and the people and the strategy and all of that kind of stuff that they need to make these things happen. Up at the top, now this looks like a bit of a house now, doesn't it? Which is a stylistic change, but bear with me again. Up at the top, at the roof line, that's where all the people are. That's where the bottom part of the organization is. They're the ones who face customers every single day. They're the ones who hear what customers have to say. They're the ones who hear the complaints. They're the ones who have to deal with things. They're the ones who are most able and most sensitive most able to make changes to the organization, most sensitive to the current needs. When a customer comes in and says, you know what, I don't think it's fair that this is going on, they're the people who are able to go, I kind of agree with you, but I'm not allowed to do anything about it. But what if they were instead able to go, you know what, Mr. Customer, I get it. I'm not going to make a major policy change here. I'm not going to shift the direction of the organization. But this time, this once, I'm going to give you your $50 back because I don't think that was right. What about if they were able to do that, if they were able to get out there and lead, and able to get out there and make frontline decisions? The people in the middle of this organization under this kind of structure, they're not the depressed middle managers who are put upon and forced to dictate strategy that they don't necessarily agree with or weren't consulted upon. They're the walls and the pillars of the organization. They're there to hold it all up. They're the ones who are able to get the feedback from the front line, from the roof line, and go, you know what, actually, I think there's something in this, and push it down into the strategy of the organization and say, we think we need to do something urgently, or we need to do something big, or we need to make a small change, whatever it is, but something meaningful. In that sort of structure, in that sort of philosophical reimagining of the organizational structure, suddenly everybody feels fulfilled. Leaders aren't as out there on their own, dragging their I mean, there was so much room to fall, so much pressure on them. People at the bottom are actually able to provide the service that they chose to, but they signed up for those roles in order to provide in the first place. And those people in the middle suddenly feel useful. I think that is something that we're getting wrong a lot. And I think that is one of the major problems we have with our organizations. We're structuring them wrong. We've been doing it forever. And so we get the kinds of results out of those that we deserve. It's mad, but there it is. That's my thought for the week. I hope you have a great week.